Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is an introduction to the wonderful 101 walkthrough that I'm going to be making. The reason I'm doing this video is the same reason I did the one for Devil May Cry 3. This is an incredibly confusing and chaotic game that upon first watching, you're not going to have much idea about what is going on. Even when you know what's going on, sometimes you don't know what's going on. It's that kind of game, and there's a lot of systems, a lot of jargon, and a lot of things I'm going to be doing and assuming you understand. And the worst thing you can do as a guide maker is assume that people understand. It's unfortunate, but not everybody does. So this video here is hopefully a nice introduction to how to play the wonderful 101, how to do some things maybe you've not thought how to do, and some of the systems that you're going to be seeing me implement in my walkthrough of the game on 101% hard mode. This is the wonderful 101. That is Wonder Red. He is the main character, I suppose you could say. He is one of the first people you're going to be using. So here is what this game looks like when it's not completely going to hell. As you can see, there is a big leader circle around the red guy in the front, and then there's this big vast army of fellas behind him. All of those are you, believe it or not. When you hold Y on the controller, you will pull them towards you in a little phalanx like this. What that enables you to do is it enables you to move quicker. It's the game's equivalent of a sprint. It also brings your people to you to get them out of harm's way. First thing I want to talk about is the camera. It's up my ass right now, as you can see. It's pretty close. It's entirely preference on how you use the camera. I particularly don't like it up close. If you press the L button, it pulls it out. So this is the perspective I enjoy. Obviously, if you're new to the game, or even if you're experienced, it can be sometimes very difficult to see what's happening when it's this far away. It can sometimes be difficult to see what's happening when it's close. You know, it doesn't matter really. This game is so chaotic, so insane at times. It is just tough to see, hands down, regardless. But that's your camera controls, your basic camera controls. Give you a good guys on, you know, your perception and what have you. So the next thing you need to know is the number in the top left. You see the big red fist? That is how many wonderful ones you have in your little group. They're my wonderful ones. There are all these people around me. Whenever they get hit, they get stunned and dizzied. Whenever they're dizzy, I cannot use them. I have to wait for them either to recover, or I have to pick them up for them to come back into my little army of dudes. This is the most important aspect of the game, because if you do not have people around you, you cannot do the Unite morphs, which are the most powerful attacks you can do in the game. With no people, the Unites do not work. You need your people. You will only be penalised for damage if your leader gets hit. So, all of those in the back right now who are trailing behind me, they can take damage, fine. Doesn't affect our life at the top. If I take damage, it does. That's the big distinction here. However, them taking damage is not a small thing because you need them, they're useful, you need to try and stay in command of all times. Below that you can see batteries on the hood. Batteries are really important. You'll notice that whenever I pull out a Unite Morph by pressing A, the batteries get really big. You see that? You'll also notice that by making that Unite Morph, I used a battery. You see that? The thing about 101% hard mode is Unite Morphs take more to make. I believe it's a battery per time you use it, rather than the initial time you use it. It makes battery consumption a big thing, because when your batteries go down, let me just try and... There you go. Batteries gone down, you have to wait for them to come back. You cannot do those moves unless you have batteries. You cannot do the moves that take batteries unless you have people. It's this symbiosis of features that come together to make the combat very interesting in this game. Batteries, very important. On the left you'll notice it says 0 batteries. If you traverse these areas and you look around, you'll find them. By picking them up, like that, you'll notice it says I now have 7 batteries. 7 batteries is on its way to becoming a full battery. The more batteries you have, the more powerful you are, the better the techniques you can use. Pretty simple stuff. So the next thing we should talk about is the basics of combat. So I've already told you that holding Y brings your people to you and enables you to sprint, keeps you in a tighter formation. Pretty damn useful, very useful. What it also does is it breaks your morphs. Breaking your morphs is very important because sometimes you don't need them, sometimes you need different ones, sometimes you can be vulnerable in the aftermath of using them. Very important button. I'll talk about it more when I talk about the morphs themselves. So X on the pad does this, which is kind of like a basic attack. It's a stun attack that your team does. You can charge it if you've bought it by holding it. There are, I think, 3 levels of charge, and then your men go out. And then you can tap it. I generally tap it is most effective for me. And what it does is quite interesting. It's called, I believe, a climb attack, which is not the limit break from Final Fantasy VII, unfortunately. It stuns enemies, but it makes your wonderful ones attack them and stun them. It also is the game's lock-on system. The lock-on system in this game is very unique. I hate it, personally, but it's unique. What happens is when I attack something like this, a ring will appear around the person we're attacking, and that will constitute as a lock-on. Before that point, anywhere I move the analog, my attacks will come out on, so I can aim them myself, but at the same time, anyone who's played a game where you can do that knows it's never 100% right all the time. It can be tricky to aim, especially if it's a big, prolonged attack. So the lock-on can come in handy. But the most you'll see me using this is for stuns. You can stun enemies, and when an enemy is stunned, you can launch them. When they're launched, it generally gives you much more time to do things with them. It's a very good, unique and interesting state, and all sorts of different enemies have different stuns. The lock-on only lasts a couple of seconds when you get it, and then it vanishes and you have to re-establish it. That's my biggest criticism of it, but you'll hear more about that in the guide. This is just a tutorial on some of the basic features. So the B button jumps. You can do a double jump. I don't think you have to buy it. Jumping is one of those things that I don't really think you need me to tell you anything too much about jumping. If you hold X, your team will jump with you. It can be useful for them not getting hit by lasers and things. Not all that functional. To get this difficulty, you have to beat the game. If you've beaten the game you have to beat it a few times actually. If you've beaten the game, you have to have this. That is one of the most important Unite morphs in the game. It's called the Unite Spring. I do that by pressing the right trigger on this pad. It gives me iframes. Very important things to keep you alive. But also, if you have it in combination with the custom block, which I think is called Hero Evade, it can slow time down if you evade at the last physical instance, just like which time does in Bayonetta. Incredibly useful and powerful combination of tools. You have to buy it though when you first play the game. And not starting with this move is kind of criminal, because there are people who are not used to these games and don't realise how important that move is. So the first thing you want to buy is this. And you'll notice when I use it, it steals a battery from me. So if you spam it, you will lose batteries. Or you'll go into that mode because I've got a second upgrade. Let's try and... See what I mean? You can't be too spam happy. And the thing that is the most important part of Unite Spring is you get the iframes but your team don't. This is something I'm going to talk at length during the game because it's one of the things that really gripes with me and you need to be aware of it. But that is fantastic, it's super useful, and it also does damage if you upgrade it to a drill spring, so you can be in the middle of a combo, you can cancel out of it with the spring, do damage, escape the blow that was going to hit you, and then continue to fight. Fantastic move, you need it. On the left trigger, you have Unite Flan, as I call it, which is Unite Guts, and you turn into a rather fetching looking delicacy. And do you notice how it doesn't last too long? Depending on how many people are in your pack will depend generally on how big the flan is. Also, depending on the size of the attack that hits it will depend on how long it seems to last. You can cancel this. You can cancel it by activating a morph, do you see that? I'm in it, I'm activating a morph, it cancels it. Be very careful with this folks, because I get caught out all the time with this particular one move. Because what will happen is certain attacks linger, and Guts lingers with them to deflect them. Because I've got Guts Spikes, which does a counter attack, which is very powerful. Also does a stun, which is great. But you can be in the middle of a guard, doing a counter attack, and you think it's cool to start beating them up because you've got the stun, you're nice and safe, and you cancel out of the move into your fist, and you're vulnerable. And their attack is still lingering, you get hit. Really annoying, really frustrating, happens to me all the time. You need to be aware of it. But the weakness of this move is not only does it take a battery to use, which is not a weakness, it's just a design feature, it cannot defend against anything sharp or spiky or lasery. That is how this game works. But this game also has this really interesting defense system where almost all the Unite morphs you have a counter to something in the game. And throughout the game you will learn them, and that knowledge will then make you a better player and make a lot of the encounters significantly easier. So you're probably thinking it's about time I got to the morphs. There is also a taunt. I think you have to hold 2 buttons, I don't know which one, or you hold the left stick in when you're in front of an enemy. And what it does is, I believe it increases your strength and it enables you to go into camp straight away, but I've never really experimented with it because, you know, I'm still pretty new to the game, so it's not something I'm probably going to see me doing too much unless I realise it's the shit, and it probably is, I just don't know that yet. So the first thing you need to know on this game, in a more advanced systems of the combat, is how to make your weapons. This is not like a game like a Devil May Cry or a Ninja Gaiden where you swap to your weapons and you have them accessible to you. This is a game where you have to draw them. This is on the Wii U, and the whole point of it is this drawing feature. It's what makes it interesting, it's what makes it creative. How the drawing works is you use the Wonder Liner. The Wonder Liner is the path that you draw of people. So here is a straight path. That is a Wonder Liner. Those people on that blue line are all Wonder Lined together. It actually hurts the enemies if you buy the upgrade, and it can be used in conjunction with the bomb to do a very, very powerful move, but we'll talk about that when the bomb comes up. The Wonder Liner can be disassembled immediately by pressing Y, just like that, so if you draw something wrong, you can just get rid of it, Y, and you will not be penalised. To create from the Wonder Liner, you have to press A to create the morph, and the morph we're making just there is the sword. It's the simplest, it's the most basic, it's very useful, and it's what a new player is going to go to a lot, 'cause it's easy to draw, very useful. The size of your Wonder Liner dictates the size of your morph. There are a handful of different ones. I think there's about 4 different varieties depending on how many you have. It depends on your team as well. One of the blocks I personally use enables you to hold the morph button, which is A, to make the attack change in size depending on how many people you have. It's super useful for getting those big attacks out quickly without having to draw big things, because drawing big things can be challenging in the heat of battle unless you're experienced and you know what you're doing. Something worth mentioning is when you use these big attacks, these bigger morphs I should say, your team will reduce. The less team you have around you, the less people you have defending you from stray shots and stray explosions. Also, the less people you are able to use in conjunction with moves. So I should give you an example because this sounds kind of confusing. So the first thing we're going to do is the sword. You can either do it on the touchpad or with the analog. I use the analog exclusively now. I didn't used to, I tried the touchpad, it's really fun and useful, but I prefer the analog. All you do is a straight line. There's your line, there's your morph. I now have a sword made of people. This is Wonder Blue, he's kind of the Dante of the group. He's using a sword. You see how the sword is glowing? That means it's about to fade away into the normal size, because it was a little bit longer than the standard sword. The bigger the morph, the more batteries, the more people it uses. Certain morphs need people to attack, so if you use all your people to make it, you might not be able to use it. So there's this balancing act of how many people you have, keeping those people safe, and using them intelligently as weapons. This is the sword. This is me swelling it to all the sizes I can get by making a bigger morph, by holding the morph button because of the block I'm using. You'll see me do this, I'll explain it in the guide. See that? That's a much bigger sword, but it takes off more batteries and it doesn't last as long, but it's much more powerful. If I had 100 wonderful ones with me, then we'd be able to make an even bigger sword. Later on in the game you get 200, the biggest sword available. Fantastic stuff. But there is the sword. The most useful thing you'll see me do with this sword is using the moves that you unlock via using it in the game. The ones I have for this are the Stinger, which is that. To do that you press back forward B in any direction you want to do. If you have a lock on it'll do it automatically. There's your Stinger. I'll be doing the High Roller, which is the launcher, which is that. You can actually do it twice because we can air hike, like such. And you'll see me doing the Cyclone, which is a circle on the analog and then attack button. And you'll be seeing me do it in a combination of other moves, which you can't really see, but there you go. It's super useful. The sword also has the ability to reflect. Any blue laser you see can generally be reflected by the sword. Any coloured laser generally can be reflected. You need to know this because there are some attacks that can't really be evaded, and this is going to work wonders for. Once again, I'll speak more about it in the main guide. This is just a tutorial. But that's your first unite. It's a sword. It's really useful. The fist is a circle, but you'll notice you don't have to draw a full circle. You can kind of draw a bad penis. Entirely up to you. You can either do a flick on the analog like I did then, or you can do the circle on the touchpad like that. That was me using touchpad, that was me using... oh bollocks, that's the wrong one. I've unlocked something that's a square that comes up a few times when I try and do punch. It's called the, I think it's the Unite launcher, but I don't really use it because I don't understand it yet because it's really new. But there's your punch. One thing to find out, you can buy something that speeds up your Wonderliner. So you'll notice, when I draw a sword, it's pretty fast. And that's now using nearly all my team to draw that sword. That's everybody in my team right now. It's quite quick. Watch this. That's not as quick, is it? Believe it or not, that's the upgrade you buy, that one. But there's a trick on this game. While you're doing the Wonderliner, if you hold the left bumper, you can speed it up. Like that. It is a mindfuck at first. It throws off your timing insanely, but once you learn how to use it, you can draw multiple shapes really quickly with it and get some really good results. It's one of those... see if we can do the platinum. Like, you can... it's all about practice. Practicing the shapes. Getting good at doing them so that you can mix them up, do combos and things, do very damaging combinations. But that speed technique is really useful. It's super good. But back to the punch anyhow. You draw kind of like a penis. You get your fist. The fist blocks fire. That's its ambient function. If there's fire anywhere, if you hold the fist, you will 99% of the time be safe from it. Sometimes you can get caught. Your team will not be, bear in mind. Your team will only be shielded if the hand is shielding where they are. But it blocks fire. The cool thing about this fist is it's super powerful, it's quick, and it's easy to draw. And it's my favourite of the morphs. And this is the bigger version of it. So big fist now. And it does all the moves you saw me do with the sword. Like that. Very functional. Power instead of range, that's what you need to think of it. Fist is quick and powerful. Sword is range and quite weak. Then from that, you can move on to the gun. The gun is an awkward one. So, how I normally draw it is I flick up and I flick right like that. You have to draw a right angle. The problem is later on you're going to get a boomerang from Vorken, and to draw his you have to stop between the flick. And I do that anyway, and I condition myself to do it, and it's wrong. What you want to do is continuous, like that. That's a much better way of drawing it. The gun is pretty interesting. It shoots your wonderful ones. So you'll see there's a person over there stunned now. I have to pick him up to help him back into the group. He'll come back to us eventually, but it takes him a while. The thing to bear in mind with the gun is you're firing people, you're firing your team. And the less team members you have, the more vulnerable you are to do things. So it's a risk versus reward maneuver. What the gun does ambiently is it enables you to pick mines up. You pick mines up and you can fire them back. It's pretty damn useful with that kind of stuff. And I don't know how many moves I've got with this. Got the spin attack, got the stinger move, so I've got a few with it. The gun is one of those moves that's good at building combo, but I don't really find it too useful for stuff unless it's ranged. Range, it's really dominant. But once again, you know when I do this, and you notice how I'm moving slower, so I cancel it to move faster, and I get into range to use gun again, all of this is using batteries. On this difficulty, batteries go so quickly, it's kind of crazy. But there is the gun. Pretty easy, pretty simple stuff so far. We're getting a little bit more complicated now. You get the whip. The whip is great. That's the whip. You do kind of a squiggly S, think of it like. You do a line with a squiggle. So it's up, right, left. There's your line. You can do it on the touchpad, you can do it with the... it doesn't really matter. However you draw it is all down to your preference, but there is the whip. The whip is one of those interesting ones where it has great range, it has great power. It's a great weapon. It also has the ability to pull armour off of people. Very useful to be able to pull armour off of people, let me tell you that. It's insanely useful. Really good, really fun, powerful, range, best of both worlds. Then we have the hammer. The hammer is easily one of the tougher ones to draw that people are going to struggle with a lot. What I do is I draw a question mark. It works almost every time. Except that time. There you go. Sometimes it needs to be a little longer. But what you have to draw is essentially a line with a circle on top of it. It can be a bad circle, it can be a good circle. As you see, the Riddler sign kind of works pretty great. You can have a really long shaft and then oh. Shit! As if! I did not know you could do that. Well, you learn something new every day. You can put wonders into that window. Ah, cool. Awesome. Serendipity, eh? But the hammer's tough to draw. It was one of the tricky ones to draw. It's one of the best because it's very powerful. So the thing you need to know about the hammer is when you have it like this, anything that rains down above you cannot damage you. Within reason. Certain lasers and things probably still might, but for the most, this will block almost anything falling on you. It will also weigh you down in water. Very important too. But the hammer is very slow. Really slow, but it's incredibly powerful, and that makes up for a lot of its slowness. It does so much damage, and when you get it real big, and you get it all nice and burly, it's got big wind up but big damage. Really powerful. It's good at breaking armor, it's good at breaking the turtles, it's good at breaking the ground and getting special things. It's insanely powerful, super useful. Swiftly moving on to one you probably won't see people use too much, and it's the Wonder White. This guy uses claws. So to do this, you have to do a dash to the right, a dash to the left, and then a dash to the right. And you do kind of a stylized, italicized S, like that. Kind of like a thunderbolt. Think of it like a lightning bolt. It can be tricky to pull out, but I generally do this. I knock the analog to the right, to the left, to the right, and boom. And there you have it. You get your claws. So the claws work in a few ways. Not only will they freeze the enemy, but they fire a projectile. So you can hit them from a range. However, they trade off really good style points for weakness. They're not very powerful. They also enable you to climb mountains and climb up walls. But they're an interesting move, and they're fun. I've not really mastered them or got used to when to use them, but there's certain enemies that are weak to them, so I use them on them, generally. Same moves as most people. You unlock moves with your wonderful ones the more you use them. Unfortunately, there's a move called Unite Big, which is one of the most overpowered things in the game. I don't have it yet, and none of my strategies will be using it. But swiftly moving on, I also don't have any of the wonderful ones who are secret, except for goggles, because they're really hard to unlock. So the next one you get is the bomb, and to draw this it's like the reverse hammer. You have to draw a circle or a C and then a stick away from it, just like, you know, a child's drawing of a bomb. So you start with the circle, wherever you want it to be, and then you lead a line off from it. And you'll notice it's turned purple. Purple signifies that I can create the morph. So you do your C, you do your stick. That is a whip, believe it or not, that one. That is a hammer, interesting. So, bomb is not one of those I generally use the speedy liner with, because it can be much more tricky. You can do a full circle should you choose to, and then lead off from it. That's still a whip somehow. That is Wonder Goggles, which doesn't make much sense. So yeah, bomb is one of those that I would never use the speed up on the liner, because if I want to get it bigger, I'll make it bigger by holding the button like this. So this is one of the stranger moves you'll get. It throws a time freezing bomb. Inside the time freezing bomb, your enemy will be frozen depending on how big the morph was, and it enables you to beat them up and combo them and all that kind of good stuff. Slows them down, it's great. But it has a secret function which I noticed but didn't really understand what was happening until I broke down what I'd done, and I looked into it further on the stuff I'd captured and I noticed what was happening. So the bigger the bomb you build, the more damaging your Wonderliner will be to the enemy inside it. So you throw your bomb and then you Wonderliner. If you hit the enemy with the liner, it will do damage to them, indicative of the size of the bomb. If you have a 100 Wonderful Ones bomb, you will kill some of the hardest, strongest, toughest enemies in this game immensely quickly. You will get no style points, but you will shit on their face. It's insane how strong that move is, but it's very, very specific in its uses. So from that is pretty much all the morphs you're going to see me using. I do have goggles, and to do goggles you have to draw an infinity sign, which is really tough to do with the analog, so I've got a different way of doing it. This is me on the gamepad. That's goggles. So as you can see, I'm a pair of goggles. The thing I don't like about this is when you start lasering it, the controls invert themselves, and controlling where it points is just batshit weird. I don't like it at all. To draw it with the analog, I do a stick up, like that, And then I kind of do, you know, the stereotypical fish, which didn't really work then because I'm used to doing it. There you go. So up, curve it down like a reverse P, back in on itself. Kind of like a weird P. A calligraphic P. I think that was a hammer. So it would have been like that. And it's just not working now, which, there you go. I don't really use goggles too much. It's one of those things. I just don't. He's the most recent one I've unlocked. He's the one I've no practice drawing. There are a bunch of people you'll get throughout the game. There are different signs and very, very specific uses. But I'm not going to cover those in this because you're not going to see me using them too much. But that is all the basic morphs. So now to finish up, we need to talk about how you can use them. Because I've given you the basics of the things you're going to see me doing. You need to be aware of one extra thing here. So all the morphs you saw me build, you can build and have your team control them. It's a really interesting trade-off. So you do the Wonderliner like that, into whatever shape you want. There's the sword. And instead of pressing A, you can press X. And X will create the Unite morph, and your team will take over, allowing you to do something else. And they'll do their thing. You can have, I think, up to 5 of these doing their thing. And as you can imagine, it can be pretty interesting and pretty tactical to use it that way. I use it every so often, but not so much on this difficulty because batteries are precious. So there's a choice between, do you make it and put yourself in risk, or do you have your team make it and put them in risk? And the combination of both to juggle things and put a beat down on stuff. The biggest change in this difficulty is this. See what's happening? The game is not slowing down. On all the other difficulties, when you start to draw, the game slows down. On this difficulty, it doesn't. It doesn't give you that luxury. You have to draw in real time, just like during the missions. It's not as tricky as you think it would be, and I actually think it's a little more fun at times. It's not as easy to juggle people, but it keeps the game being really fast, and I really do like that. I just don't like the battery consumption that this difficulty has. Also, the enemies are the same placements as they were on hard, but the damage they do now is obscene. Absolutely, completely obscene. It's kind of crazy. But the most important thing that I need to share with you here, folks, is just your ability to use your Unite morphs. You're not limited at all. You're limited by your own abilities, and that's what makes this game so rewarding and fun to play. When you do a morph, when you do a move during a morph, you can be drawing another one. See that? Something to think about. You launch somebody into the air, start doing a spinning move, turn into a fist, do a spinning move, turn into a whip, do a spinning move. You can do all sorts of weird stuff. Throw bombs. It's entirely up to you. Any of those moves, those special moves that you can do with your Unite morphs, can be chained into other moves. It all depends on your ability to do it. You can also do a really easy one to practice, is the cyclone ones, because if you get into the air and you do the circle, you can just keep on doing it, you can keep on repeating it. That'll help you get used to inputting things on the fly, and then you can try and input other stuff, which I did this. And this is the thing that's a square, which fucks me off, because I didn't draw a square, then I drew my bad penis, and yeah, I got that. Which is a little bit annoying, but it's all me. So, cyclone, fist cyclone, whip cyclone. That was meant to be a hammer, but you can do a whole bunch of different combinations. It's really, really in your interest to get better at swapping between them on the fly, getting comfortable with the ability to draw them, and you'll soon be getting significantly better at the game in no time. Other things to bear in mind, when you don't have a full 100 people in your team, if you circle an enemy, you will recruit them when they're glowing purple before they die. Also, when you stun an enemy, if you draw a circle around them, you will throw them. It's a very damaging technique, it's very interesting, super good stuff. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to share here, folks. I'm going to walk into this next fight and I'm going to show you some of the things we've been speaking about to get rid of these enemies. The first fight is obviously nothing impressive, it's just a bunch of the standard little fellas. I'm going to show you the counter-attack that Guts does, I'm going to show you the damage it does. So, here are the enemies. This is your first fight in the game. If you watch them, he's going to attack us. That is Unite Guts. See how he's purple? We just recruited him. We now have 90 people. He's on the ground, he's stunned. So here's the stun attack. Press Y to stun. See how he's glowing gold? We can now launch him. and continue to do other things if it should we choose to. Like the rocket and then the tombstone. Which... But do you see how my men are beating people up? That's because I pressed Y on them. See how he's climbing him? Those circles right there, they're lock-ons. So, that means he's going to attack us, if you watch. Oh, he's got bad aim. I'll try my best to get a Witch Time-esque move by the hero dodge off one of these fellas. Come on, boys. Oh, lasers. There you go. So now the game's completely slowed down. Here we go, he's going to come for us. Oh, he missed again! Dude, you suck! Oh, here we go. This might be a bit more interesting. So, second enemy spawned in. He's going to summon more enemies. The camera is something to... Oh! Oh, I missed my Ukemi. Never mind. Camera's something you need to get used to. Wow. That technique right there is called Ukemi. When somebody hits you like that, this is an attack. Then we can recruit all of those dudes. We now have a full 100 wonderful ones. Oh, what's happening? I don't have enough batteries. That's weird. Oh no, my team wasn't with me, sorry. Yeah. This camera is way too close for my taste. Yes! Smash him! Oh my goodness. That was a full 100 of those people all together in a big smash in the hammer move. But that's just a microcosm of some of the stuff you're going to be seeing in this game, guys. And I probably didn't do the best job of breaking it down, but I'm going to try hard in the videos themselves to tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and why it works. This is a game with a lot of depth, and it's also heavy on the execution, so it's just so different, and I'm really excited to bring it to you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you got something from this, and I hope it makes the guide a little bit less confusing. If you have a Wii U, there's really no reason not to own this game. It is the best game on it, bar none. It just is. I'm in love with it. But yeah. Look forward to the guide. It should be coming in the next week. And as always, you take care now.